Okay, it's 5 p.m., so I think we should start as there's an awful lot to get through. And I know people are joining online. We're expecting around 180 people, and we're up to about 70. But let's kick off. My name's Kate Burt. I'm the Chief Executive of the Haemophilia Society. I'm co-chairing today's webinar with Rachel Halford, Chief Executive at the Hepatitis C Trust, and we're grateful to the Hep C Trust for organising the logistics of this evening's session. So welcome to everyone. What this evening is about is having the opportunity to get everyone up to date of where we are now. And an awful lot has happened in the last few months, not least the unprecedented step that Sir Brian Langstaff took in reopening the inquiry hearings in May and then publishing a further report in July. So we want to talk about where we are now as organisations, where you are now, and how you are feeling as individuals, and what we are planning to do as some of the charities in the early part of 2026. So I'm going to hand over to Rachel, Chief Executive of the Hep C Trust, who's going to explain some more about the logistics of how things are going to work this evening.
Thank you, Kate. Brilliant. And welcome, everybody. Just to reiterate, thank you for joining us, and I hope that you're going to find this evening really useful. So how the session is going to run, just to let you know straight away that it is being recorded. It's being recorded so that we can then forward the session on with all the questions and answers after the webinar. So throughout the webinar, we'll have a summary from IPCA, the Psychological Support Service, the Infected Blood Memorial, the Hepatitis C Trust, the Haemophilia Society, and the UK Thalassaemia Society. So we've got a really packed agenda. Unfortunately, the infected blood response team from the Cabinet Office can't be here tonight. They did try, but unfortunately they can't, but they did send a briefing. So Layla's going to provide that briefing a bit later on with a summary of it will go out tomorrow. In this format, so you will have realised already, you can't put your cameras on or your mics. So in this, we do tend to get a lot of questions. So if you could put your questions in the Q&A box, we've got 3 people monitoring them. And throughout this session, we anticipate we should have an opportunity to ask maybe 1 or 2 at the end of each of the speakers. But what we will do, and can assure you now, is we'll take all the questions that come through, through the sessions, and we'll take them all after the meeting, and then we'll make sure that they are all answered, and you will get a copy of the answers. So we hope to finish by around 6:15 this evening. And really, just one more bit of logistics, and then we'll get going. So I'm just going to hand over to James, who will just do a quick overview of how the webinar will look. So over to you, James.
Yes, thank you very much, Rachel, and then thanks everyone for joining today for what we hope will be a interesting and useful session. I just wait for the slides to come up. So yeah, Rachel's covered some of this already, but just a bit of housekeeping and how the Zoom webinar will work. We've got it running so attendees are anonymous. That allows us to record the session and then post it online for people who can't attend, but also if you don't need to worry about taking any notes or missing any detail because you'll be able to watch the recording back later. Yeah, and yeah, we've got the Q&A function running. If you look at the picture at the bottom of the screen, your bar might look slightly different, but where the orange arrow is pointing to the Q&A button, if you click that, a window opens and you are then okay. You can then use that button to answer some of the ask some questions and see and vote for other people's questions. You can also ask questions rather anonymously if you'd prefer, and we'll be monitoring that throughout the session, posing questions to presenters. But if we don't have time to get to every question, we'll collate them and include some of the responses in the summary that we send out after the session that some people have opted in to receive. I think that's pretty much everything from a housekeeping point of view. So I'm now going to hand back to Kate, who's going to introduce our first set of speakers. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, James. So the first speakers are going to be Clive and Joan, who are the chair and co-chair of the new Memorial Committee. Some of you would have been in London last week and heard some of the plans that are being formulated by the new Memorial Committee and everybody who was announced. So with no more ado, over to Clive and Joan.
Thank you, Kate. I think there's a slide. Here we are. As you all know, recommendation 2 of the Infected Blood Inquiry report is set out there. Sir Brian Langstaff made 12 recommendations. Recommendation 1 was on compensation. Recommendation 2 was about memorials and memorialisation. I think you'll probably all agree that it was no accident that Sir Brian made it recommendation 2 and not recommendation 12. It was very much not a nice to have, an afterthought or a footnote to his report. It was at the front and centre of his report. To that end, earlier on this year, I was invited by the Minister for the Cabinet Office, sometimes referred to as the Paymaster General. He wears 2 hats, but in this capacity as the Minister of the Cabinet Office to chair the Infected Blood Memorial Committee. I was appointed back in July this year and took up my position formally at the start of August. Kate's mentioned a few moments ago that we are newly formed. However, despite that, I feel like we've achieved a lot in those first few months. My first job, or one of my first jobs in all of that, was to appoint a vice chair, and I'm very pleased to say that Joan Edgington is joining us today. I'll introduce the committee to you very briefly in a minute, and forgive me because I'll be flicking between pages on my screen. But as well as that, as Kate mentioned, alluded to, we also held our first memorial event last week at Church House, and Joan will say a little bit more about that and indeed future events. We have 2 tracks in terms of our work. One is in relation to memorial events. As you'll remember, Sir Brian recommended that there should be a minimum of 3 gatherings of the community, and he made that recommendation in May of last year. We're behind in terms of that being 6 months after that date last year, and so as part of my terms of reference, I asked that it be written in that the first memorial events take place by the end of this year, and I'm glad to say that we, and I mean we, have achieved that, myself, Joan, and the Cabinet Office Secretariat, and all the help that they provide. The second aspect of that is obviously in relation to memorials, and we held our first consultation, which Joan will tell you a little bit more about in a few moments. So without further ado, let me just introduce to you the committee. We have a website. I think there are going to be some links put up in a little bit later in our talk. We had photographs taken last week, I'm pleased to say. We have a web page on the .gov.uk website, so you can find us there, and you'll find there are 11 of us for reasons which will become apparent. Joan and I, along with 9 others, and myself, I'll hopefully be familiar to a few of you. I come very much from the haemophilia community. I'm a former practicing barrister. I have severe haemophilia A, and I've spent 9 years as a trustee of the Haemophilia Society. 6 years of those as chair, and those 6 years, the latter 6 years, coincided with the Infected Blood Inquiry, and I spent many months, indeed years, at the inquiry in my role as chair and as a core participant. Having stood down at the end of last year as my time had come to an end, the Society very kindly made me the honorary president. Over the years, I've obviously engaged with government, plural, spoken at various APPG meetings and been interviewed by national and international press. I'm a former member of the board of directors of the World Federation of Haemophilia, which I hope puts me in a good position because I'm in contact very much with other haemophilia organisations around the world and can learn from their experiences in relation to their inquiry memorialisations. As well as that, I'm joined, as I say, by Joan, who will be familiar to many of you too, as vice chair. Joan was infected with hepatitis C as a result of blood transfusion and started campaigning in the late 1990s as part of the forming of the Skipton Fund. Joan has been a core participant as well to the Infected Blood Inquiry and is also a member of the Infected Blood Psychological Service Committee. In Alphabetical order, so no preference to anyone else. We also have Bessie Woodhouse. Bessie's father was infected with hepatitis B and C, having been treated with interferon as well, and she's a carrier of haemophilia. Bessie has a strong academic interest in the subject of memorials and memorialisation, with her undergraduate degree focusing on how societies of the past process death, and her postgraduate degree focusing specifically on public monuments and memorialisation. As well as that, Bessie works at the Cabinet Office and is based in Glasgow. She brings an understanding of government processes, having worked as a policy advisor to the Queen Elizabeth Memorial Committee. As well as Bessie, we have Claire Walton, who has been infected and affected by contaminated blood through the loss of her husband, and who had severe haemophilia and was co-infected with hepatitis C and HIV. She became infected with HIV through the course of that relationship. Claire has been a strong campaigner and co-founded Positive Women to raise awareness of the lived experience of wives and partners who are infected with HIV via husbands and partners. Claire is a core participant to the inquiry and is one of the Infected Blood Compensation Authority's user consultants. And Claire has extensive experience of archive conservation and art with skills that will complement the design memorials. As well as that, we have Gordon Dixon. Gordon's father was infected with hepatitis C through contaminated blood products, having suffered from mild haemophilia. Gordon's been involved with the society since 2019. I've worked with him since then and has engaged widely with the infected blood community, and indeed attended many of the inquiry hearings and a number of events, including, as I say, the inquiries, the hearings themselves. We have John Dearden, who will be known by many of you too, who has severe haemophilia A and was co-infected through contaminated blood products. He's been a trustee of Haemophilia Scotland since 2019 and has held the positions of treasurer, joint chair, and now chair on his own since 2024, since Bill Wright stepped down. Through Haemophilia Scotland, John has supported work to establish a Scottish memorial and tribute to those whose lives have been impacted by contaminated blood. John has extensive project management and event management experience, which he's keen to bring to the work of the committee. Next, we have Neil Lewis. Neil's family has been affected by haemophilia and he sadly lost two brothers due to contaminated blood. Neil, based in Cardiff, currently works for the Commonwealth War Graves Commission and brings with him significant experience on the practical elements of memorialisation. Next, we have Nicola Leahy, who I know will be known to many of you on this webinar too. Nicola was infected with hepatitis C through a blood transfusion. Nicola has been a strong advocate for the patient voice throughout a long career in the NHS, including 30 years as a senior manager and serving 9 years as an NHS Trust lead governor. She's a core participant to the inquiry and has been a lived experience member of the Infected Blood Psychological Service and has supported the design and rollout of the service. Next, we have Nigel Hamilton. Nigel has had past tense mild haemophilia and was co-infected with both hepatitis B and hepatitis C. Following a liver transplant in 2018, his haemophilia was resolved. He's the current chair, of course, of Haemophilia Northern Ireland and has supported the infected and the affected community in this capacity. He's a core participant in the inquiry and currently a registered volunteer with IBCA. Next, Tom Koukoulis, who may be a relatively new name to many of you. Tom has lived with thalassaemia since birth and was infected with hepatitis C via blood transfusion in Greece and lived with it for approximately 30 years. Tom has been a strong advocate for the thalassaemia community, volunteering with the UK Thalassaemia Society and taking part in conferences as a patient representative. Tom was part of the consultation on blood donation, contributing to the work on criteria and phrasing, and has worked with the European Rare Diseases Organisation, EURORDIS, and the EMA, the European Medicines Agency. Last but by no means least, we have Bill Wright, William Wright, OBE. Bill was infected with hepatitis C through contaminated factor VIII, and he now has advanced liver cancer. He doesn't expect, sadly, to make it to the end of the memorialisation process. Bill founded and was chair of Haemophilia Scotland until 2024 and has contributed significantly to 2 public inquiries into infected blood as a core participant. He was awarded an OBE by the King in the 2025 New Year's Honours List for services to the infected blood inquiry and people in Scotland with bleeding disorders. He's been heavily involved in fundraising for a memorial in Scotland and indeed is part of a living memorial effectively that they have at Holyrood House at the moment. He travelled there last week, having come down to London for the event at Church House. So there we are. That's a whistle-stop tour of our committee. I'm now going to hand over to Joan to give you a bit of an update in relation to what else we've been up to. Over to you, Joan. Thank you.
Thank you, and hello everybody. Apologies for the croaky voice, but it's still working. I just wanted to catch people up on the recent day that we had in London. The purpose behind that was to try and give everybody a voice. The wonderful team, Cabinet Office, but also Art Laurie and Morag Wood, who some of you may remember were behind and facilitating the launch of the inquiry. They were there for the report day. They've been fundamental and key to helping us process these events. Totally know our story, very invested in helping. And one of the wonderful things they could do for us that day was, through QR codes and modern technology, feed straight back onto screens at the front of the auditorium, just showing exactly what people were saying. And that visual key is important because, yes, there's a weighting where you can see people start to favour a particular aspect, but every single input is recorded and kept. That information is being collated and will go forward to the committee. So I know people have been asking what next. Within the Cabinet Office, we're also looking at being able to put the link to the YouTube of the day. We're going to do a little bit of editing, but that's literally just to remove dead air time and when we had breaks and things. But that record will be there for people to see. So I won't say too much about the day, except that it really felt a positive step forward. We are now able to start framing what it is that we as a community would wish for in a memorial. I would say, though, it's not the be-all and end-all. This is a long process. We're only just at the beginning. And as Clive said, we've only just appointed the full committee. So we're hoping that people will interact with the website. We'll try and do updates, keep you posted, let you know what's going on. And really just trying to emphasize the importance that we would like to hear from you. So if you've missed that day, there will be other opportunities. And we will, as a team, be using the website to feed back information of how far we've got with things. So we'll try and keep it all accountable. Which leads me to something that I'm sure people may already have heard. We just wanted to flag up, and it is very early and it is hot off the press, hot news. Please, would you start looking at keeping May the 19th next year in your diaries, because we will be at St. Paul's Cathedral with a memorial service. And I know that will flag up lots of questions. I've had lots already. We are just at the start. Bear with us. We just felt it was very important to let you know as soon as possible that this key date was coming. We will, as we can, fill you in with further details. But what I would ask the community to do, I'm very aware that we can only reach out through established networks. And I'm very aware that a lot of people have maybe given up on Facebook and are just relying on friendship networks for news. And it's important to us that as many people as would like to attend can come. And that includes family members as well. So please put the date in your diary and we will keep you posted with everything as and when we can. Thank you. Before my voice fades, just ask if we've got any questions in the pipeline. Excuse me.
Thank you so much. For the minute, I can't actually see any questions in the Q&A box, but maybe you're going to be here for the whole session, so maybe there'll be something that'll come later and we can bring them up later with you. But thank you so much. Such an enormous amount of work in a relatively short amount of time, so incredible. Thank you very much. I'm now going to hand over to David and Cindy from IBCA. Are you there, David?
Hello, I am. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm going to hand over to you and Cindy. Cindy.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for the invitation to attend today's event. Really appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to be here. Before I begin, can I say thank you to the Haemophilia Society for Saturday's big get-together. It was great to see so many attendees and to have such inspiring discussions. And I also want to say how valuable it's been to hear from the Hepatitis C Trust and the Haemophilia Society and the other speakers today. Your work to support people through so many different circumstances continues to set the tone for the entire community. And we, IBCA, learn a lot from you, and it informs how we shape our service. So thank you very much. As many of you will have seen, today we have opened our services to those who are infected but never compensated. And this is an important moment as we work to deliver compensation quickly to those who have been denied justice for far too long. So look, this evening I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we've done, how we've got to it, and where we're going. So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about us. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we're the IBCA, the Infected Blood Compensation Authority. We're the arm's length body set up to pay compensation to those infected and affected by HIV, hepatitis B or C through contaminated blood products or tissue. And our role is to make sure that compensation is paid quickly, accurately, and compassionately. And we aim to recognise each person behind every claim and treat all of you with dignity and respect. And we carry out our work with what's described as a test and learn approach. And we do this working with the community and working with partners to deliver the service that everyone expects. Next slide, please, Leila. This is Sir Robert Francis. He's our chairman, and this is a quote from him. He said earlier this year that people have waited far too long for recognition and justice. And since we have been created, we've been determined to play our full part in putting that right. We know there is still a lot more to do and a lot for us to do to earn your trust. And that's a commitment that I and my team take seriously every day as we strive to do that. So let me tell you a little bit about what we've done in the last year or so. This is what we've done in 2024. And as many of you will know, we're a new organisation. We were created there were two of us appointed in May 2024, and we've been working to build our services and the organisation since then. Some notable landmarks over the course of the year. So the inquiry report was published, and the government finally apologised. And that, if you remember, that happened in May of last year. And the act that established us was also received royal assent in that week. Sir Robert took on the responsibility of doing some early engagement with the community on the contents of the scheme as the government had proposed it, and he put his recommendations. He carried out this engagement during the election period, and he put his recommendations to inform the scheme to the new government as soon as they were in power. And then in August, the first regulations, which the regulations are what give IBCA the legal authority to make payments, came into force. And in November, less than 2 months later, the first claims for infected people registered on a support scheme started. And by December, less than 4 months later, the very first payments were made. So if we move forward to 2025, well, this has been a year of intense work. We have, in 2025, expanded our claim service. We've launched compensation calculators for infected, affected, and deceased infected claims. That's something we know was vitally important, so you could understand what the regulations meant for you. We've contacted all the living infected people registered with a support scheme and asked them to start their claims. As we heard, Sir Brian from Kate, Sir Brian opened a second set of hearings for the inquiry and made some additional recommendations, and all of those that applied to IBCA we accepted. We opened a registration service for anyone who is intending to make a claim. And today, I'm pleased to say, we've opened our services to those who are infected but never compensated. So let me tell you a bit in the next slide about compensation progress. We publish our latest statistics every 2 weeks so that people see how we are getting on. And as of the 20th of November, 3,614 people have been asked to start their claim. 3,418 have begun that process with their claim manager, and 2,777 have received an offer of compensation. 2,446 of those have been paid their compensation, and over £2.1 billion in offers have been made, over £1.6 billion has been paid. These are just numbers, and behind every single one of these, these claims is a person, somebody who has experienced injustice, often for decades, and we recognise that and try to support everybody, in particular via our claims managers, through their claim journey. But we are acutely aware that this is a long way from everybody being paid compensation, which is our duty and our mission, and that we must go as fast as we can for all those who are due compensation. So on the next slide, I'm going to set out what we've got on current and planned activity. So as we set out, we have today opened the claim service for people who were infected but never compensated. Many people in this room have campaigned for that for years, and I'm really pleased that we've reached that stage where we are now ready to open those services. As we've previously done, we will start small with 60 claims initially. And we'll start with those 60 claims before we open up our services further. We will prioritise the claims based on the recommendations from the infected blood inquiry. And this means that first we'll be bringing in claims for those who are sadly nearing the end of their lives. And then we will bring in claims by severity of infection and also by age. We'll identify these people to begin their claims via our registration service. By the end of the year, we aim to start the very first claims for people who are claiming on behalf of somebody who has died, and also for those people who are affected individuals. So both of those we aim to begin by the end of this year. All these groups have waited far too long for recognition. We know that people are anxious about what comes next, and we're focused on making the process as simple and compassionate as possible. And when I look ahead to 2026, other things that we will do as well is we're going to start running drop-in events across the UK, and these give people a chance to meet IBCA colleagues face-to-face, to ask them questions, to speak with us about our work, and to tell us the things that you need from us. We'll continue to work to open up our services, learning from our private betas. You will have seen the sort of sequence events that we have gone through with our first cohort. That's the sort of sequence that we will continue to do, so that we learn and make sure that our process is a very supportive and a smooth and rapid one. And we will also implement and develop the new regulations that the Cabinet Office are currently consulting on, obviously subject to parliamentary approval and agreement to what goes into them. So as soon as we know what Parliament has agreed and is in them, we will work to implement those as well. So next slide, please. Yeah. So if there's one request I have of you, please, it is, and it's the number one thing I want you to take away from this, is that we would like to encourage everyone who may be eligible to register with the Infected Blood Compensation Authority. It takes about 5 minutes on our website. It's a quite straightforward process. And what it allows us to do is allows us to contact you as soon as we can to start your claim. It also allows us to understand if your claim should be prioritised and how it should be prioritised according to the inquiry's recommendations. And that allows us to ensure that we pay as many people as possible in their lifetime. And you can register your intent to claim if you're infected but never compensated, if you are affected, and if you are acting on behalf of someone who has died. Please do register if you think you fall into those categories, and please do encourage other people to register as well if you know them and think they haven't registered. That may include family members as well. So, if they think they may have an affected claim, please do ask them to register as soon as they are comfortable to do so. You can do that by going to our website, as shown on this slide. You can do that by emailing us on this email address. And if you scan the QR code on the slides, it will take you straight to the registration form. But you can always call or email us if you need any help in doing that. So finally, thank you. Today is about being open with you, letting you know where we are and how we're progressing. We're looking forward to some questions and trying to answer those and hearing what you need from us. We've made some progress, which is encouraging, but we know that there is lots more to do. And we're committed to doing that work with you, not around you. Your experience guides the service that we build. Thank you again for having us. And thanks to the Haemophilia Society and all the speakers today for all the work you've done on the Hepatitis Trust. We know that you'll have some difficult questions, and rightly so, and we're here to try and answer them as honestly as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I know we've got some questions on the chat, but before we go to that, I just wanted to, and I know Tommy's posted a comment, just to say to the IBCA team how difficult we know this week has been for you. So we really appreciate you being here tonight. Layla, James, are there a couple of questions that you think might sum up? I think the majority of the questions has been possibly for IBCA.
Yeah, sure. I'll kick off with a couple. So there was a few around the private beta for unregistered infected claims, and do you have an expectation of how long that will take before you open it up to the rest of the people eligible for that compensation?
Yeah. James, I've got a couple of colleagues with me, Hannah Probert and Cindy Skeldon, who, forgive me, I should have introduced when we started. But I think one of those would like to answer this question.
Yeah, I don't mind answering that, David. Thank you. So as David mentioned before, we've opened it up today and brought 60 people in. And until we get going with those 60 claims and we understand how long the process takes, do we have the right guidance? Is there anything in policy that's sticking? We can't really give a timeline on when we'll scale. What I will say is 60 is just a start for private beta. So it doesn't mean that we will just do 60 claims in private beta. We will keep testing in beta until we cover the range of circumstances so that we're confident when we scale that we've got it right. And then once we scale, as you saw this year when we've had the registered infected, it should be much quicker for everybody once we've got everything in place. James, I also saw a couple of questions about Amashua about private beta for unregistered infected going live, because somebody got some confusing information that it would be the middle of December. Middle of December is probably for the next cohorts that we'll be bringing in, which of course is deceased infected and affected. So like I say, we have gone live today and we've already contacted those first 60 claims based on the prioritisation criteria set by Sir Brian.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. Another question, there's been a couple that have come in around prioritization of claims. So for the other cohorts like affected claims and estates, do you have a planned prioritization process for those claims similar to what's gone on with the registered infected so far?
So I'm happy to answer that one. So we've accepted the recommendations of the inquiry in terms of the way we will prioritise within cohorts. So I'm happy to just run through that for people. We have published it previously, but for the deceased infected, it's primarily about the kind of beneficiaries of the estate. So it's firstly about if a beneficiary of the estate is within 12 months of the end of their life. We don't ask for any medical proof of that. We just ask for people to let us know if somebody's in that position. It's then if somebody's aged over 75, then if the deceased infected was never recognised with any compensation, and then finally we work through by age. And for the affected, again, it's somebody who's within 12 months of the end of their life. It's if somebody's aged then to anyone who's aged over 75, then to people who've never been yet recognised through compensation. And then for the affected, there's a prioritisation based on children who lost both parents through infection, and then we move through by age. The thing I'd say, and David's already said this, is that's obviously based on our registration data. So again, we've really encouraged people to make sure that you're registered and you're letting us know. And if any circumstances change and you need to let us know about that, you can contact us to update us so that we make sure we factor that in. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Hannah. I think we've probably got time for one more question before moving on. So, and we'll collate the rest that have been asked around IBCA and get back to them after the session. But one on claim managers, and a question on why there's only been 10 appointed in Glasgow so far, and a question around kind of the pace of that, with the understanding that it will rise to 80, and then also how many current claims managers are still employed in Newcastle as well, if anyone can answer that.
I can answer that, James. So I think it's fair to say the team in Glasgow was stood up really quickly so we could get a footprint up in Glasgow, thinking it was really important that we did that. There will be rising to about 80 claims managers and additional members from IPCA up in there. So we'll have a team of about 130 up there in total, possibly from early next year. In terms of numbers of claim managers, I now have 372 trained claims managers, with another 8 that joined us this Monday, so 380. Our plan is still to recruit, not just up to 500 now, but up to 570 claims managers, including Glasgow. And we think we'll probably do that by early next year. The reason it stalled a little bit is whilst we've been waiting to open up the new private betas for the next groups of people, obviously we just want to make sure that we maximise and get everything ready for those coming without being really inefficient.
Okay, great. Thanks, Cindy. I think in the interest of time, I know we've got a lot coming up. We'll move on to the next section now, but we might see if there's anything left at the end and find a few more questions. So I believe I'm handing back to Kate now to introduce the next set of speakers.
Yeah, thanks, James, and thank you, David, Cindy, and Hannah. So next speaker is Victoria Miller from the Infected Blood Psychological Service. IBPS was set up this year and specifically to support the infected blood community in England who were not being adequately supported. Of course, there are psychological services in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland as well, and contact details for these services will also be given at the end. But over to Victoria now to give an update.
We can't hear you, Victoria.
Is Victoria here? Have we lost her?
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Oh no, you're here. Okay, great.
Sorry. I don't know why you couldn't hear me. It said unmute on my form. Sorry, have you heard anything I've said, or do I start again?
We haven't heard anything.
Sorry. Okay, so hello, good evening. So I'm Victoria Miller, consultant clinical psychologist by background, and I'm the new professional lead for the Infected Blood Psychology Service. So I was honoured to take up the post in September. And I've been working to get up to speed with the great work that's been done so far. And is it possible to have the slides? I can't see the slides at the moment. Great, thank you. And I just want to thank the Haemophilia Society for inviting me along on Saturday to do this presentation. It was so nice to meet so many people face to face. And for those who were there, this presentation is probably going to be quite similar with some of the same information. So apologies if it's stuff you might have heard before. I take up the role 0.9, so 4.5 days a week, and my colleague Sarah helps us one session. She was previously acting as the professional lead while I was recruited into post. And we also have Joey Barton, who's the programme manager, and we are just coincidentally based up in Newcastle, which is the same as IPCA, but not in the same team. We're obviously part of the NHS. So it was also based on the inquiry recommendations that due to the inquiry, it was found that there was a lack of psychological care that had been offered to those people who were both infected and affected. And subsequent recommendations was that a new service was required to set up that was specifically for affected and affected community. Just move to the next slide. Thanks. So it's been commissioned by the Department of Health, and it based on the fact that the existing services in England were not currently meeting the unique needs of the individuals. And NHS England subsequently was commissioned to mobilise this service across the service. So there's several really important aims of the Infected Blood Psychology Service. And as Joan mentioned earlier, she's part of a stakeholder group And we have an expert advisory group and stakeholder groups who both feed into thinking about how this service should be delivered, and that this was a co-produced service with the community. And it was really important that these 5 points that I'm just going to discuss were made, so that it needs to be a responsive and proactive service. By responsive, we didn't want people to have to wait a considerable amount of time. And our key performance indicators are that if somebody contacts the service, that we get back to them within 14 working days. And the other KPI is that if somebody then goes on, once they speak to a navigator and it's decided that a piece of psychological work is to be carried out, as well as some of the navigator psychosocial work, that we will do that within 4 weeks. It's important that the service is flexible and agile. That means that it's important that we're able to try and reach people who perhaps don't live near haemophilia centres, so that we have the option of not only face-to-face, but also we have the option of online sessions. But it's a compassionate service, and everybody who is employed by the IPBS actually has to go through an induction that includes understanding what's happened to the community and the history, the inquiry, and they actually have to they're required to watch and to read documents related to the inquiry and the history, including some videos and some documentaries that have been made. And it's important that the service doesn't feel gatekeeping, that people can self-refer. They don't have to go via their GP or any of their medical specialists. People can self-refer directly into the service, and that they work with their clinician to think about a piece of work that they want to do. And then if they want to come, once they've been discharged, if they feel that there's another piece of work that needs to be done, they can come back into the service again. So just to tell you a little bit about our service is split into 7 different regions, and that's indicated on the map there. And within those regions are different localities that I'll discuss on the next slide. But within those regions, we have navigators. And again, this was a recommendation of the inquiry and a discussion with the stakeholders and the expert advisory group, is that we have navigators who are experts in their own areas. Some come from a social work background, some come from an occupational therapy background. And it's about having that opportunity to have that warm welcome into the service with people who understand what the community have been through, and that they can also support access to additional social support, so benefits, housing, employment, financial, and have ongoing contact where required. We also have the option, the regional navigators are also responsible for providing peer support. This is going to be our next phase of the service, where we currently have an option of online peer support that we've bought as a package that we can offer people who want to do that within our service. But the next step is actually having face-to-face and online peer support that's run by our service or in conjunction with our service, and that will be happening early next year. So we just move on to the local services. So the local services, there's 16 different services across England, and on the next slide it will show exactly where these services sit. All staff, as I mentioned, must complete an induction, and some examples of people presentations that we are seeing. There's obviously a lot of trauma, a lot of bereavement, anger. So anger, anxiety, and sadness are always around wherever there's trauma. We have specific trauma-informed psychologists and psychological practitioners. We might work with people around anxiety, lack of trust. We also talk about managing long-term health conditions, and how to support people with the challenges around that, and working with people around stigma and shame. And just an example of some of the main therapies that we offer: CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is a trauma therapy. We offer systemic and family therapies. We offer psychodynamic psychotherapy and acceptance and commitment therapy. I'm sorry if not all of those terms are familiar for everybody, but I just wanted to just show everybody that there's a breadth, and we try to think about what the individual needs when accessing our service. It's also an all-age service. So we're not limited to adults only. And I was, I've been approached by people asking about older teenagers and other people that have been affected. And then on the next slide, it'll just show you where about in England those services are based. So there's 16 different centres, and they're across the country, but we've made the service in such a way that we have one joint electronic patient record. That means that this is separate than your health record, so you can access us without anybody in your healthcare team knowing, if you don't want them to know. The only exception to that is obviously if we're concerned about somebody, then we need to breach confidentiality and let people know, normally your GP or emergency services, if we're concerned about you. But we have a completely separate service. But that also means that if you currently live, for example, in Liverpool, and you don't want to go to a service anywhere near Liverpool for various reasons, you've got the option of choosing wherever you want to have your support. So you might go to Manchester, you might go to London, you might come to Newcastle, and we've got the ability to do that. And because when you get referred in, you get referred into a navigator in your area, and then you can have that discussion with the navigator about where you might want to receive your treatment. So if we just have the next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, it's really important that people have the ability to refer themselves, and the best way to do that is through the website. So I've put a link there to the website, infectedbloodpsychologyservice.nhs.uk. And within that website, you can click on a button and it says online referral. It's one page and just asks you some basic information, asks for permission to call you back, leave a message. And then you should receive a telephone call within 14 days of that referral going in. Professionals can also refer on your behalf. So if you're having a conversation with somebody, and it might even be somebody from IBCA, it might be somebody from the Hep C Trust, it might be somebody from Haemophilia, it might be one of your medics or consultants, or it might be a physio that you're working with. Anybody can refer on your behalf as long as they have your consent and your permission to do so, and they have to tick a box to say that. If you don't want to have anything to do with online and you just want to pick up a phone number, we also have regional and telephone numbers, and they're also on the website. And I've got the telephone number, the national telephone number, on the next slide, I think. Oh, sorry, I'm just telling you a bit about what the service is. So just to let you know, oh, no, that's fine. So the services, just to let you know, we are very new. So we launched officially in June this year, and it's sort of a launch where we have had some people who've been sitting waiting for this service, and some people who didn't know about the service. And we launched the electronic database that I just mentioned called PCMIS, so we can see we're one joined up electronic records. We only launched that last month. And so far we had a data, we had to get some previous information that we'd been keeping in different formats onto this one system, and that was all of the data's been transferred now, and the deadline for that was only 2 weeks ago. So we're just now looking at some of the data and pulling out some of the information, and we have to report that information back to NHS England and the Department of Health to make sure that we are delivering the service in line with what was recommended in the inquiry. So far we've got, and there's a bit of an update, we've got 440 referrals when I looked earlier on today. So the last slide, I think, is going forwards. We're going to report that data. We're going to look at developing peer support and stigma works, and that will be next year. And then the last slide just has that information again about how you can help. So spread the word, let people know this service is available, and it will be available for some time. So if you don't feel like it's right for you at the moment, and it's for those people who are infected and affected, and we don't have any restrictions on affected, so it can be anybody who's affected. They don't have to even be a relative. If you've got a really good friend, you might have a partner, child, sibling, it doesn't matter. And we don't ask anybody to prove anything to get into the service. It was really important that we don't have any barriers into the service. So please, if anybody wants to find out anything more about it or they're not sure, if you can give us a ring on the national telephone number. That's the national telephone number that actually the national team set up in Newcastle, or you can go on the website for some more information. Thank you very much for your patience today, and I'll pass you back to Rachel.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Victoria. And just, I know we're slightly behind time, but I just wondered, because one of the questions that came up was about children again. Is it available for children? I know you mentioned teenagers. Can you just clarify that?
sorry, just trying not to have a coughing fit. I
That's
think everyone's
right.
got the same virus that's going around, haven't they? Yeah, so the service was commissioned for all ages, and it was predicted that that would be quite a small number. But if you are someone who's got a child, all ages, if you just send the referral in, we will have a think about the best way to support that person.
Fantastic, thank you. And you're going to hang around just in case we've got any more questions we've got a bit more time at the end. Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you so much, Victoria. And I now have the pleasure of handing over to Layla, who is going to be providing an update which the Cabinet Office have sent. Are you there, Layla?
I am, yes. Hi, Rachel. Hi, everybody. And sorry, I also have the virus that's causing everyone to cough on the webinar. So I'm just providing a bit of an update from the Cabinet Office. As Rachel said earlier, the Cabinet Office can't be here today, but we have an update that was given to us by Ellie Nicholson, who is the new Director of the Public Inquiry Response Unit at the Cabinet Office, who I think some of you will have met. And they've provided a written update that's quite long, so we've just put some bullets together because we think there's some important stuff in here that we wanted to share with everybody. But the full update will come with the things that we send round after the session. So the update relates to the 15 recommendations from the new inquiry report. Which are for the Cabinet Office, and the first bit is, as everyone I'm sure knows, or most people know, so in October new draft regulations were laid in Parliament. These change requirements, including the need for people with Hep B and C to provide evidence of their date of infection, and the start date for HIV infections, and various other things. They're going to be debated in both Houses of Parliament, so in the Commons and in the Lords. That has to happen before the legislation goes through. And the aim at the moment in the government, the hope in the government, is that that will be done before Christmas, before the end of the year. So that's the kind of the immediate legislative change. As I think will be picked up again in later sessions, they have also opened a consultation about some of the other changes that have been proposed with the compensation system through the Infected Blood Inquiry latest report. So this looks at the special category mechanism, the severe health condition award, the impact of interferon, past financial loss for people on support schemes, exceptional loss, the supplementary route for affected people, and unethical research. And today they launched a series of explainer videos. Like some of these are really quite complex and difficult to understand, and some of the the legislation and stuff around them. So they launched a series of explainer videos today, which will be on the gov.uk website, and we will circulate links to those explainer videos afterwards. So hopefully that will be really, really helpful. In terms of the compensation, so you can respond online, you can respond by letter. There's lots of different ways that you can feed in, and from a charity perspective, it would be really helpful to do respond if you can. The consultation is open until the 22nd of January, so there's a couple of months left to do that, and I know that Rachel and Kate will be talking about some of the work that we're doing as organisations to feed into that as well. They also wanted to highlight that applications for second interim payments for estates opened on the 23rd of October. So there is an application process for this, even where there's been a previous claim, and even when that previous estate claim the payment's been made. There will be details of this in the email summary as well, so I won't go into loads of details for that. Many of you will have seen a kind of final point in yesterday's budget that there are also changes now to the inheritance tax laws. So these were made yesterday. These mean that if someone has already passed away when their compensation is paid, the first living recipients will receive a sort of a credit, an inheritance tax credit, so that they can pass on the value of the compensation after their own death without paying inheritance tax. They will also have 2 years in which to gift some or all of that compensation without an inheritance tax charge. So these are they're again, I think this will be picked up again. That we'll pick this up further and provide more information. But basically, the changes mean that compensation payments can be inherited without inheritance tax, where the person has passed away before compensation could be paid. The other thing, just to kind of, so that's the update from the Cabinet Office, and what they've also offered to do though is help us respond to the questions that we'll be responding to in writing after this. So if you do have questions, do put them in the Q&A. I almost certainly can't answer them, but do let us know, and then we'll get responses from them and make sure that they're fed back to everyone afterwards. Thank you. Back to Rachel.
Fantastic, Layla. Thank you so much. And just to remind everybody that questions are being picked up. I know that there's a comment in there about, are the questions being seen? They are absolutely being seen. And we will pick them all up and make sure they're all responded to. I'm now going to hand over to Kate and Chris. Well, Kate first. Kate, Chris and I are all going to do a little update from our respective organisations. But I believe, Kate, you were going to go first.
Thanks, Rachel. Yes, I just wanted to give an update to the community about where are we now in terms of the Haemophilia Society and what's been going on. We've been meeting regularly with Cabinet Office and IBCA on compensation issues and the consultation. And of course, as the Haemophilia Society, we're lobbying for all of the recommendations of the Infected Blood Inquiry report to be implemented, including really importantly, Recommendation 9, which is securing the future of haemophilia care, of which we're not hearing enough movement. Victoria and David mentioned that last Saturday we had our annual conference, the big get-together in Northampton. David and a team from IBCA was there, Ellie Nicholson from the Cabinet Office, Victoria, and they were all on a panel where 200 of our members were in attendance, and they took lots of questions, and they very kindly also held individual meetings. So we're very grateful to all of them for being there. Yesterday, as Layla mentioned, the Chancellor made an announcement on inheritance tax in the budget, which was very welcome, but we continue to campaign on areas that are unique to the bleeding disorder community, including the issue of unethical testing. It must be accepted that all people with bleeding disorders who received treatment up to 1985 were subject to unethical testing by dint of the fact that they were exposed to blood products pooled from tens of thousands of high-risk donors. Also, we do not believe that the levels of £10,000 and £15,000 currently on offer in any way adequately recognise the multiple exposure to risk for people with haemophilia and bleeding disorders. Linked to this, those infected as children, leading to disrupted education, careers, family life, in fact, every area of life has not been recognised. They suffered exceptional losses, and there must be a way of recognising that and compensating those that were infected as children. And also, we all agree that the devastating impact of interferon and the psychological damage that resulted has to be adequately compensated. That's just a few of the issues that we're campaigning and lobbying government on and working with the Hep C Trust and Thalassaemia Society. And I wanted to just also provide you an update on Recommendation 10 and the negotiations that all three of our organisations are having with the Department of Health and Social Care. As you may know, in May, just before the inquiry hearings reopened, we were very unexpectedly made an offer of funding from the Department of Health that the three organisations jointly rejected. It came out of the blue to us, and there was no accountability expected of us, and we just thought that was wrong, the way it was handled, the way it was offered, and jointly we decided to reject it. We've been in negotiation with the department ever since, and the reason it's taking so long is that they then flipped from no accountability to grant agreements that were so restrictive that we wouldn't be able to carry out the work that we must do for you, our community. We're coming to an end of those negotiations, and we believe that we might have some announcements before Christmas, but the grants that might be agreed are really to enable us to invest in more resource, more events, more dedicated support and signposting for you as you negotiate your way through the compensation process. We don't feel at the Haemophilia Society that currently we can offer adequate support. We need to do more, we need to do better, and we need to support you as far as we can. And that's what that money will be used for. So what's next for us? We've got meetings scheduled with the Cabinet Office next week, specifically to talk on areas that are specific to the hepatitis C community. On the 9th of December, we're going to be running a webinar with our finance expert, Sam Richards. Many of you will know Sam. He has haemophilia himself. He's an expert in financial wealth management, to discuss the implications from the announcement yesterday in the budget on inheritance tax. So 9th of December, more information to come on what the timings. And we'll continue to work with the Hep C Trust, Haemophilia Societies in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, the Thalassaemia Society and campaign groups, because we really believe that if we can have as much of a united voice as possible, we can achieve so much more. And from next month, we're going to be working together with the Hep C Trust on how we can come out to the community with a survey on what you want us as your patient organisations, how you want us to respond to the consultation. So thank you very much. That's the update from me.
Fantastic, Kate. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to provide just a real snapshot from the Hepatitis C Trust. And just to say, I just wanted to echo working in together, the Thalassaemia Society, Haemophilia Society. I think working together as organisations definitely makes us a much stronger voice. I'm going to give you a little snapshot of some of the work that we've been completing, just to give you a sense of what's happening on the helpline, etc. And then a very brief overview of our new plans, which tie in with, as Kate's already described, the possible not quite signed off grants from the Department of Health and Social Care. So just to give you a little heads up, we've had over 30,000 calls and emails since the start of the infected blood inquiry in September 2019. 12,400 of those were since the launch of the final report in May 24 alone. So that's actually, and to date, now in 2025, we've already received 6,000. So when you think that we just have Sam, Lisa and Susan, they are a very small team. We really have been inundated, but they are incredible. They are dedicated and they are passionate. The majority of people, they have lived experience, the majority have lived experience themselves, and they have a really wide range of expertise. I hope that, you know, many of you on the course have actually met them or come in contact with them. They help with a wide range of issues. They offer guidance, signposting and assisting, dealing with the compensation process. That's a core, you know, real bulk of our work at the moment. We help to support and refer people into the infected blood psychology service, and of course offer a listening ear and emotional support where we can. And I guess it's just important to say that, you know, we are the only UK charity specifically dealing with hepatitis C, and in particular, but not only, supporting those infected and affected via blood transfusions. We run support groups. Our helpline have been running regular support groups since 2023. This is a place for those who've got hepatitis C or B or HIV via transfusions and blood products. And indeed, their partners, children and siblings can come as well if they want to. They are always oversubscribed. And I guess that, you know, we're aware that there are changing needs, and with the compensation process soon to open up and to more affected people coming forward, we're really pleased to announce that we will, you know, this is part of our new work going forward, is that we'll launch a new additional group specifically for affected community to come together and share their experiences. I think the power of coming together in a support group, it cannot be underestimated. We're hoping that this will be in the early part of next year in June, in the early part of New Year. We do work with other organisations, as Kate's already said. We work really closely together. I've already said that. We also work with the infected blood inquiry team. Since the start, we've been doing that. And over this last year or so, we've had regular meetings with the Infected Blood Psychological Service, feeding in, supporting anybody else who's feeding into it as well, IBCA and the Cabinet Office, so that we can share our knowledge, but more importantly, make sure your views are represented. Finally, just moving forward and our aims moving forward, you know, if once these contracts go through, and if these contracts go through, what our aims moving forward are to sustain and strengthen this support that we provide for the infected blood community by maintaining and enhancing our advocacy and support. We'll want to extend the hours of the helpline and strengthen our support services for everyone affected by infected blood, including expanding the helpline access for people with hepatitis B, going through the compensation, because we know it's going to be really difficult, as you know, many of you on the call will know, particularly difficult for people who don't have the evidence. We'll continue to provide a consistent and coordinated advocacy service, ensuring that there's clear information, reliable follow-up, and some practical support, as always, tailored to the individual needs. It's very individual. We hope that we will be able to help people understand and navigate the compensation schemes. Not we hope, you know, but we will help people understand and navigate the compensation schemes. Support to access the psychological and schemes and emotional support schemes. Across all of our work, we will fully represent the needs and the priorities of the community, the infected blood community, ensuring your voices are heard and acted upon in government, IBCA, and all the other relevant forums. And we will, of course, keep you updated. And I think just to reiterate what Kate has just said about the, we will be doing a survey jointly together to find out exactly what you all would like us to put into the consultation. And I can see Chris has got his camera on there, and it gives me a great pleasure to hand over to Chris, who's going to give a little update on what's happening in the Thalassaemia Society.
Thank you very much, Rachel, and thank you very much also to Kate and all our colleagues and the staff, and also the speakers on this meeting. And thank you very much for inviting us. The UK Thalassaemia Society has been in existence nearly for 50 years, and we are a very small society representing a very small community of thalassemia, ethnically diverse. Nevertheless, we've been involved with the community hepatitis B and C management and treatment as far back as the early days of the operation delivery networks. And of course, we became one of the core participants at the beginning of the infected blood inquiry. And then we followed that up now that we have reached the compensation stage in the scheme. So for us, we have engaged as it's one of our priorities, and we have engaged with the Cabinet Office, the Minister, his staff. It hasn't always been easy. And
oh, I'm sorry, Chris, we've lost you. I think your mic keeps going out.
Right. How about now? Can you hear me?
That's a bit better, yes.
Yeah, okay, apologies. Okay, so as I was saying, the engagement with the Cabinet Office has been a little bit challenging because we have been raising a number of issues, particularly trying to raise awareness about the main issues for thalassemia patients who, in conjunction with hepatitis C and the treatment, to make people aware, particularly with the expert group, about the difficulties which are very specific to this kind of combination, the condition with treatment as well.
Sorry, Chris, your sound's really strange. If you sit forward a bit, I think we might be able to hear you better.
Okay, I'll hold this
brilliant.
closer. Yeah,
that's it. Fantastic.
It's not a dynamic. Yeah, and so that's to make sure basically that we are supporting our patient community and that these patients are not disadvantaged because the full clinical story is not really understood properly. We were very, very pleased, and we kind of breathed a sigh of relief when the with Sir Brian was actually published his additional report. And we believe, particularly with the reconstitution of the expert group, that this would actually go a long way towards fixing the issues that we had identified when we were engaging in the cabinet office, etc. And we also raised the same issues with IPCA, and I'm happy to say, to their credit, IPCA has been a lot more positive and compassionate in their responses. Unfortunately, our hopes were not really fulfilled to the extent that we were expecting. And, it is very, very important that, this issue is recognized, and we will continue to engage and advocate for that. One other thing that has been an issue is also, as you already mentioned, I think, the issue of patients who have been infected many, many years ago, decades ago, and have not had the evidence, which has been destroyed, even though our patient cohort is basically, because of the thalassemia, are regular visitors for treatment to most of the hospitals, because we need to have transfusions every 3 to 4 weeks. So we have not only regular existence in the hospitals and the trusts, but also we have an increased exposure to infection from blood-borne viruses like hepatitis C, hepatitis B, which means that a number of our patients have been doubly and triply infected with different genotypes, as well as hepatitis B and hepatitis C. What we're now trying to do and moving forwards is to have the power and the clarity, particularly as we are a charity, because the power of a charity is basically rooted in its community and it is membership and its mission to support that community and membership. So we are trying to, and we have initiated, particularly with the help of a potential grant that we've heard about already, so I won't reiterate the details of that. If it goes ahead, because we're still in negotiation with about that, but we are going to double our efforts and to try to scale up our activities so that we can find, educate, guide, and support all those patients who have been infected and the families affected by the scandal. We are going to undertake an outreach campaign where we're going to be visiting various regions around the country, around major treatment centers, and try to identify patients, and we ask them to come forward to talk to us in total confidence, and to bring them together to raise awareness about these issues and also about the compensation scheme and the regulations. And of course, about the unresolved medical, clinical, social, and psychological needs which have resulted from these infections. Furthermore, we are going to provide advice about the rights under the regulations, which, as we know, are very, very complex. And we will support them in accessing the compensation scheme and provide them guidance about managing the issues that are generated after accepting the award, because I think we know for sure that the end of the compensation scheme award is not the end of the pathway for the individual. So we will employ a number of experts in terms of providing expertise in financial matters, in tax, estate planning, and well-being as well. So furthermore, we are determined to support the families of infected and deceased patients in any way that they required, to keep them abreast of developments in the regulations as they develop and as they happen, and to enable them to effectively access this complex compensation scheme. So I think this is, very brief oversight of what we are doing. And by all means, we can ask us or contact us to provide more information on the forthcoming services. Thank you very much to everybody.
Fantastic, Chris. Thank you. Chris, I wonder, because it was very muffled in the beginning, do you have some notes that you could perhaps share? Then we could make sure that the information is shared with everybody in case they couldn't hear it.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. These things happen. It's IT, isn't it? We can't. It's just IT. I'm just checking in now with the team to find out, do we have time for any questions, or are we right at the end now? James, could you perhaps, do we have time, or?
I think it's what's the time? 1:15. We've probably got time for a few questions. If that sounds good.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, great. We've got a few collated for Ibka, if that's okay. If David and Cindy and colleagues are happy to jump back on, and if Layla, you've got any others as well.
Yeah, I think the majority for Ibka, if they are still here and able to
David's
for another 5 minutes.
Great.
David's here.
Okay, I'm happy to start off with one if that sounds good. We've had quite a lot of questions around prioritization and sequencing, so it's maybe best for us to take that away for the real details of it. But would you be able to provide an overview of the next few set of cohorts and what your plans are in regards to the prioritization of those claims? Just an overview I think would be good now, and then we can share the rest later.
So James, you're right. Hannah provided an overview of the prioritisation. So in the main, we are going with Sir Brian's recommendations on how we should prioritise. But that doesn't mean when we bring in those that are infected and never compensated that we will do all those first before we bring in the other groups. So once we open up all the private betas, we will then process in parallel. Now, what in parallel means in reality is something that IPCA Exco are currently working through in terms of plan. I've seen quite a few comments about should infected be paid first, and it wouldn't be fair if some affected are paid before infected. Invariably, because we are opening up each private beta and we will be running in parallel, that may be the case in some instances. But what our priority is making sure that all those priority claims, so those that are sadly within 12 months, end of life, and then those with severe infections over 75, for instance, in the infected but never compensated, and then the other priority groups for the other cohorts, make sure that we process those as quickly as possible. Because what Sir Brian said and what we heard loud and clear was to pay compensation to those whilst they are still living. So that would be our utmost prioritisation to make sure that we get through those.
Great. Thank you very much, Cindy. Got another couple we could maybe run through quickly. So one question that came through was on how compensation will be calculated fairly if in regards to length of times with records being destroyed. So I was just wondering if anyone would be willing to speak to that issue broadly now.
Yeah, look, it's a really important question, and we're conscious that, this is a community where we've had records destroyed sort of deliberately, where we've had records destroyed accidentally. We at IPCA, what we do, and this is as set out in the regulations, is we work on balance of probabilities. So what the claims managers will do is they will work with the person making the claim to get all the records that we can. And then if somebody's in a position where records have been destroyed, we will look at what's the kind of supporting evidence that we can provide. So there might be, for example, records of addresses that might not be within the kind of NHS records. That might be things we can gather from beyond that. And then the legislation does say that if we're in a position where we're still really struggling, we can look at written testimony to support somebody's claim. So what we in IPCA want to do is we want to support people to get the compensation they're due. So we'll basically work through what's available, and ultimately it's a balance of probabilities assessment that we make to see, can we come to a decision where we think that we can do that demonstration. And as I say, that does include written testimony, which can include, for example, inquiry testimony that was provided, if that's the position we're in.
Thanks, Hannah. I've got one more, and then if anybody else has got something that they want to then ask, then let's go with that. So the last question I had was around the makeup. If you're able to share the makeup of the unregistered of the beta for unregistered infected, and if there how many mono-infected Hep B people are included. That someone left a comment that these are a group of people that have never been able to claim any support scheme compensation, so haven't received any support. So yeah.
James, I can't tell you offhand how many mono Hep B are included, although I can tell you in the 60 people that we've just brought forward, approximately half, around about half, are sadly end of life. And then the next group, so we'll have brought in a lot who have got serious liver infection and disease as well. Until we get into the details, and obviously we've just sent letters out this afternoon, then we won't really know what it is that we're dealing with. But I can confirm that we have paid Hep B people as part of our registered infected. James, I saw a question as well about the other private betas and the numbers. So just to confirm that whilst we're bringing in 60 people for those that have never been compensated for affected in estates, we will start with 30 people in each of those this month. In the private betas, obviously then looking to bring more in as and when we can.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. Layla, Rachel, have you got any more questions?
So there was one about whether widows and widowers need to register. Presumably that was when David was speaking with the with the sign up form.
So I think what I'd say is obviously some people may already have been registered on the current support schemes and that information is pulled across. But in general, we would really encourage everybody to register, whatever your position is, because obviously that's the way we can be absolutely certain we've got everybody's data. But we have pulled data across from the existing support schemes if that's what somebody's getting at.
Yeah, but obviously, can I just add to that, Hannah? Registering allows us to prioritise in the right order as well. So registering your intent to claim will make sure that we bring you in at the right time too.
There was one question asking if it's true that IBCA don't have electronic records about the clients. I don't know if anyone wants to pick that up quickly.
What's that say, Leila?
So I think what this is getting at is I know from the recent independent report, it talked about the fact that we're still working on manual systems.
Manual, right.
Yeah. I mean, Cindy can talk to this, but to reassure you, that doesn't mean we don't have electronic records. It just means they're not as automated as we'd like them to be. So we do have the records of the claims.
Kept safely and secure.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think, I don't know what, thank you very much for answering the questions. I'm really conscious of the time and that we said we would finish we'd finish now, and there are so many questions. I just want to assure everybody that we will take all the questions. If they are directed for the Cabinet Office, we will direct them to the Cabinet Office. We'll bring them to you at IBCA. Sorry, that the lion's share of the questions are there for you, which I think you probably expected that anyway.
That's fine.
But we will draw them down. I can't give you a time, Layla. We're normally quite quick about this. When we've done the webinars like before previously, we normally manage to do this quite quickly. So, and then we will, Layla, can you advise me how will we disseminate the answers?
So when people signed up, there was a option to tick to say that they wanted a readout of the of this session emailed to them, and so all of those people will receive it through that. We'll also put it on our website, and I'm sure Haemophilia Society will also put it on this.
Fantastic, thank you. Sorry, I missed that bit completely. Okay, so we'll get to work on the questions and we will share them with you. In the meantime, if there's anything that you need, helplines are available. You know, in terms of the three Thalassaemia, Haemophilia Society, and of course our helpline, we are available if you've got any other questions. I guess it just leads me to thank everybody. So I'm just going to go back through the list. Thank you very much to our partners, Haemophilia Society, Kate and her team, Chris and the Thalassaemia. Thank you to Clive and Joan from the Memorial. There was no questions for you, Clive and Joan, if you're there, but there was thank yous in the message box for you. I hope you managed to see them. Thank you to Victoria, to David and Cindy for presentations, and for Ibka, Victoria for the information around the psychological support scheme. Layla and James for being behind the scenes, and Sam, and of course Lisa, who's there as well, cycling through the questions. Thank you very much. But most importantly, thank you to all of you for attending. Please come to the websites, to our website, sorry, to pick up the information, the questions you didn't get answered. As you can see, there are loads of links there on the screen, different telephone numbers. Perhaps if you've got a mobile phone, just take a picture. That's what I do. I tend to take a picture in webinars all the time now. But we have all these on our website as well at NEA. So thank you very much to everybody. I can see people beginning to go. Have a good evening, and we will see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Rachel.
Bye.